Oh, all right. Hi and welcome to another awesome episode of AFK Movie Talks with today Mega Geek and Keith from Home Media Minefield. We are here to talk about Forget Paris today. It's a different kind of movie than the other ones that we've talked about, but both Ian and Keith were very kind in wanting to watch it with me. So that's what we're here to do today. So, without further ado, Ian and Keith, why don't one of you start and just dive right in?
You want me to start? Okay.
I think Keith should start.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me on. And thanks for picking the movie, because I'll be honest, it's a film, although I'm very aware of Billy Crystal and his career, and I've seen a lot of his films, and I quite like him as an actor. This was one of those films that had slipped by and I hadn't seen for whatever reason. It came out in 1995. And I've got to be honest, I really enjoyed it. I watched it. It's actually Valentine's Day while we're recording this. Yeah. And it felt like almost the perfect movie to watch this weekend in many respects. And I was, I thought it was well made, nicely acted, and obviously we'll dig into a lot of this. It's only the second film that Billy Crystal's ever directed. It looked like he did everything, because I noticed he wrote it, produced it, and directed it, as well as starring in it. And I think the story, the setup, the premise is very interesting, and I think the fact that they went and shot it on location really adds to it. And I really like the framing device of the film, which I believe is how the idea came around in the first place. So for me, I know we're going to dig way more into it, but overall, for a film that I hadn't watched before, I had a really good time watching this. So thanks for recommending it.
Hey.
That's it.
You tell us how much you hated it. That's okay.
I liked it as well, but it's I feel that it's very dated. It's a very dated movie, because around about that time, those kind of movies go. It's very, very Woody Allen-ish, more so than any other Billy Crystal film. As I said, I enjoyed it immensely because I'm a huge fan of Billy Crystal. I really like Billy Crystal. Ever since he was in Soap, I thought, when I first saw him in Soap, I thought he had a lot of potential. And Lord knows, I didn't know he was going to be such a huge star when I was watching him in Soap. He played the gay character in Soap, didn't he? I can't remember the character's name. But
just see that. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that was a long time ago for him. But actually, he would never be able to play a gay character now, would he? Because he's straight. But anyway, we won't go down that road. We won't go down that road. But the one thing I found slightly annoying about this film, even though I laughed, was the dialogue, because it was obvious that every time Billy Crystal spoke, he was going to give you a punchline. Do you know what I mean? It just felt constructed in a way that you can tell it was, I don't know, it just didn't feel natural. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like when the coffin was on the table, and then the what's her name? Deborah. What's her name again?
Deborah Winger.
Deborah Winger was talking about, do you want to see him? And he says, if you can flip him over, that's the way I remember him. Do you remember that line? But it wasn't said in a natural way. It was said in a way that there was a punchline. Do you know what I mean? And all the stuff in it just felt like it was. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it grated with me that he would, every time he opened his mouth, he had something really sharp to say. And it reminded me a lot of the Woody Allen films, like if they're sitting around a table and they're talking about, I don't know, food or something like that, and Woody Allen would say something and he's leading up to something, he knows going to be a punchline there. It kind of spoiled my enjoyment just slightly, because as far as I remember, When Harry Met Sally wasn't constructed that way, as far as I can remember. It wasn't. It's really hard to explain, guys. It just felt set up. Every time somebody said something and Billy Crystal was in the room, you knew he was going to say something that was going to be funny. Do you understand what I'm saying, right? I just felt
I think there was. I felt like there was a lot of ad-libbing in there anyway. Particularly on the basketball court side of things. That because obviously those were real. I'm not into NBA. I don't really know the basketball world particularly well, but I do know that those were real basketball players that he was with. And I do sort of feel it was almost like stick the camera on Billy and just let him do his thing, and it had that feel. But I've got to ask you, Finn, obviously you picked this film, we're here talking about this because of you today. And which we really appreciate. But I just wondered, what is it about this film for you? What's your story with it, and why did you choose it for today?
Well, I guess it was like I have like certain movies that like I think of that like they stay with me for like certain reasons that they have like impacted me. And so like for me, when I saw this movie, it was just kind of like the narrative style that they were doing it, where they were talking about it like via other people and like what they had heard, and like in a way where like every time they stopped talking, I like wanted to know more about like what had happened, like the lady like who was, or the fiance who was basically listening to the story. And that was like the first time I had experienced, I guess, a movie like that or any sort of story like that. And so I don't know, like I enjoyed it because like I didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't just like it was a straightforward story, but not really, because, it was more of like they were super happy. Oh, they weren't, kind of like what's going to be next sort of situation, I guess.
I think it feels like a story about what happens after the happy ever after, if you know what I mean. That's what it felt like to me. So, because they instantly fell for each other, didn't they, when they were in Paris, and then they get married. And then, but also another thing I wanted to ask you, Finn, is that what did you think of the conclusion? Right, because they were both fighting for their end, right? So Billy Crystal was fighting for his life that he sees the way it is, and Deborah Winger was fighting for her life the way she sees it is. And ultimately, Deborah Winger gave up her part, didn't she, for Billy Crystal? So what did you think of that? Because that's very deep, Yeah.
I mean, I honestly. Well, she didn't get it entirely up because I think she was settling for Dallas, which, still is an upgrade, but she wanted to go back to France. But yeah, that's a tough one, because like it's a situation where you're right, where it's like it starts out like a fairy tale where they come together, they get married, and then usually it's like that's when the movie ends. And then it's like suddenly they're working out logistics, like, oh, wait, you are gone for half the year, basically. And, and I had to lose my job. And, they keep throwing it like it's like how a regular relationship might actually operate versus all this kind of like fairy tale Hollywood-esque stuff. So it's just like, oh, yeah, we found a fix, kind of. But then this started happening. And so they kept like trying to do it, and so it's just like the end. It felt like there wasn't a solid conclusion.
Yes, that's what I felt. Yeah, that's what I felt.
And so it was kind of tough because, again, I don't think I had encountered a lot of movies with open ends like that too. Because they're just like, obviously they agreed that they love each other. And they both agree that it's been impossible to find a happy in between. And they both agree, basically, that it's going to be still difficult. And then that's how it ends.
I mean, the ending, to me, was a bit disappointing because suddenly she was just there. Do you know what I mean? It was like she'd given up. She decided to give up her way of life for Billy Crystal, and you know what I mean. And I was struggling myself. Is that fair though? Is that fair on her?
Well, I think that reeks of the fact that it was written by Billy Crystal.
And
it was the 90s. But no, you know, what I found particularly compelling about it was the fact that it deals with the because I know I've been in this situation before in my life, without getting into too much personal detail, but it deals with a situation where you have somebody that is passionate about something that they do, which they've been passionate about for their entire life. They've spent their life, you know, aiming to get involved to what level they could, because obviously I did like the idea of, particularly with someone quite short like Billy Crystal, you know, his dream being that he really wanted to be a basketball player, and that was kind of worked. But you know, that he got himself into the professional level of the NBA, and this allowed him to not only work and live in follow his passion, but it also gave him the opportunity to travel, and you know, it gave him all these things. And then of course he meets somebody that's a long distance relationship, even though she's American, you know, it's a long distance relationship, and suddenly, you know, the film is all about compromise on both sides. And ultimately we get to a point where, you know, this is like a slice of life. So we've got to this point in the story, and they're having the meal, and you know, life will go on. But you know, from what we see as an audience, it looks like, you know, she's the one that sacrificed for him. But obviously we do go through that whole middle section where he gives up his dream and you know, becomes a car salesman. And to look after, and also to look after her aging father.
Her father.
And you know, of course, this film, well, the thing is, it's a drama, but of course it's made for laughs. You know, it's supposed to be a romantic comedy. And there was a lot of particularly Billy Crystal style humor in there. And hence why it had that sort of, like you said, Alan-esque feel to it. Because of course you had the other characters, and my understanding is, because I didn't know much about this film, but of course I did a little bit of reading once I saw it ready for this stream. But my understanding is that this whole idea came from a dinner party where Billy Crystal and his wife and a load of guests sat around a table, and it came up in a conversation about how they met or something, and he thought, what a great sort of frame to make a story in. So you know, it had a lot of levels to it. It wasn't a shallow romantic comedy, you know, but you're right. I mean, ultimately she's the one that sacrificed, you know, love conquered all. And
also what's interesting is that Homer Simpson and Marge Simpson was in that film.
That's right.
Which I thought was really strange.
Yes. Well, the thing is, when I first started watching it, I was like, I sort of recognized that, you know, them physically when they came in. I said, oh yeah, I've seen these in some other films of that era. But then when they started talking, I was like, I recognize the voices more than
I recognize. Well, I mean, I know what the Homer Simpson guy looks like, but then I thought I recognized the voice of the other one, but then I didn't recognize her face, and I was like, nah, I think I'm imagining it. 2 in 1 movie, nah.
I must admit, it got me. I ended up having to. I ended up having to look it up because I watched the movie first, and I was looking at the names in the credits, and I was like, and then I looked it up, and of course, as soon as I saw it, it was blatantly obvious, and the penny dropped. But I think that's quite fascinating as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're right. He did give up part of his life, but then it was only temporary for him, wasn't it? Doing the car thing, and
he was miserable, wasn't he? He
had eight. He was given 8 months off, wasn't he, from being a referee to do the job to see how it went. But compared to what Deborah Winger gave up, she actually literally gave up her way of life, didn't she? But for him at the end, which I find a bit puzzling. Because,
I actually think it does sort of speak to, we're watching this now in 2021, and I think it kind of does speak about, you said at the beginning about it being a dated film, and that isn't necessarily in terms of the fashion and the setting and all of that sort of thing. But if you look at how attitudes have changed in the last 25 years, and it does have that. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on this are, Finn, but it does. Ultimately, if you want to look more below the surface of this, it does have that kind of. I guess the man ending up being the dominant one here. The world's a different landscape now, isn't it?
Not so different though, is it? Not so different. But, but I like, the scene I like, which didn't feel natural to me, but it's obvious that it was played for a laugh, is when he was in the hotel room and there was a knock on the door and she comes in and he's like really, really happy to see her. But then she goes, "Do you sleep with the window open or closed?" And he goes, "Closed." And she goes, "I don't like that." And then they get into that routine, don't they, where they're talking about, do you squeeze the toothpaste, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? Even though I thought it was amusing, I just thought, do you know what I mean? It's a setup. It doesn't feel kind of natural. And I don't know why I'm complaining, because I still thought it was amusing,
Well, I was going to say, it worked then.
It grated with me.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I mean, it did have that, it almost in places sort of even though you had sort of magnificent scenery in this, in Paris and that sort of thing, it almost felt like something that could quite easily be done on stage as well.
Yeah.
It had that sort of kind of feeling to it, but I put it this way, I can see why you were charmed by it, Finn, because
she's no romantic at heart, isn't she?
Yeah. I mean, as far as
comedies I like that I never realized I like until I started counting them, and I was like, oh no.
You know what? Finn's probably imagined it, that she's Deborah Winger and Tom Holland is Billy Crystal. You see?
About the same height.
There you go.
But hey, so that's cool though.
Never mind, could be worse.
I never actually put a lot of thought into the way that they edited it either, because I guess like when you're young enough, it's more like, will they get back together? And then I didn't put a lot of thought into the, oh look, she came back kind of situation.
Yeah.
But it is
to be honest though, I appreciate what Ian's, I appreciate what you're saying and what you're doing, but I actually think as a piece of entertainment, I don't think it was ever intended to be looked into that deeply. To be fair,
no, I'm just being stupid.
No, you're not being stupid at all. I think you raise a really interesting point, and I think, but I do think on one hand, you've analysed it more than intended, and on the other hand, we're watching it in 2021, like we said, with sort of what we know now compared to then, and I do think that that's one of the things that that makes it, of its time, if you like.
Should be cancelled for what it's doing. No, I'm joking.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that does raise the question though, like how, if they were to remake this movie or to have made it for the first time nowadays, like how would the ending have been? Like, would they have been able to write it the same way, or would they have changed it?
I think if they made it now, it would be a same-sex couple.
Yeah, maybe.
And why not? I mean, that would work. That would be representative of the world and stuff. And I think as a story, it could absolutely work that way. I don't see why. And what the thing that did kind of make me laugh is obviously the friends around the dinner table. That was all a traditional relationship. Obviously, if you'd made that today, they'd have definitely had their set of gay friends or whatever within that group, no doubt. And again, that's just how the world has changed, in terms of
I still think especially if I was in charge of that movie, I wouldn't be making any of those references of today, because as I said, it depends on the person that wrote it. If Billy Crystal wrote it, obviously he was thinking of himself to play the part, and he's also, he's not gay. So, you know what I mean? So he's going to cast a woman, isn't it? So I think people, if they do make films today, they should do exactly what they want to do and not answer to whatever. Do you know what I mean? They should make it the way they want to make it, in my opinion. But going back to the film, as I said, I personally really liked it because I'm a huge fan of Billy Crystal, especially when he was round about that time. Him and in Harry Met Sally, in Running Scared. Do you know what I mean? He was like, was that the 80s, Keith, or was it the 90s?
I think Running Scared was like 88 or 89, something like that. In fact, weirdly, that's one that we missed when we were talking about cop.
Oh yeah,
buddy films, because that with him and Gregory Hines was a fantastic
it was
light-hearted cop film.
Yeah.
But that and City Slickers, which was early 90s.
City Slickers was fun.
And all that sort of thing. But Finn, when you first saw this, did you see this? Was this a video rental for you, or did you actually see it when it was out at the movie theater?
It was on. I don't know if it was on tape or it was on TV, because I didn't see it in the theater. Because, I was in I don't want to date myself, but I was in elementary school.
Don't do that.
Yeah, so no, I didn't see it then. I don't know, what medium it was, but that's how I saw it. I kind of walked in and it was starting. So.
Oh, in the cinema?
No, on the
TV.
television.
Oh, no, television. Oh, okay. As I said, Billy Crystal was the man during the 80s, wasn't he? I mean, he was more or less. I remember. Was City Slickers the first film that he was involved in? I can't remember.
That was the first one I remember seeing.
Yeah, so do I. But I don't know if that was his first movie that he was heading. If you know what I mean.
Well, obviously, Running Scared was earlier than that, anyway.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Running Scared was like the sort of late 80s, I think. Okay. I might be wrong. I might have to look that up. But,
I do. As I said, I love romantic movies, and this one's a good one. But as I said, I did have a few problems with it. The idea of everything that he says seems like it's set up. Do you know what I mean? Everything that he does, it's kind of. But it's a well-meaning film, and in some places, I didn't really. You know what? I found it romantic, but I didn't. That's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
I mean,
by the way, scarily, Running Scared was 1987. And when Harry Met Sally was 1989, and then City Slickers was 91, and then this film was 95. So and he had City Slickers 2 in between as well.
Yeah. That was awful. Yeah. They should never have made City Slickers 2. Absolutely awful. But I remember he was on TV talking about City Slickers, and he literally looked into the lens and he said, if you come and see this film, you will not be disappointed. I remember, and that's what made me go to see City Slickers. I remember he was on British TV. He's been interviewed by, I don't know, someone.
Probably Terry Wogan or something.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And I thought to myself, okay, I'll go and see it on his word. And I went to see it, and I thought it was a great movie. I haven't seen this one in the cinema, though, but I remember seeing it a long time ago. And Keith is right. I never looked at it that way. I think it's only because of what's happening today, and it's a film of, I think it's over, is it 10 years old,
25. Yeah, that's what's going on.
Yeah, 25. Yeah, I mean, in those days I didn't think. I just thought it was a nice romance, but today I question it because obviously it's a film slightly dated, in my opinion. Everything that happens in that film is dated. As Keith says, around the table it'd probably be, it wouldn't be couples, or be, maybe same-sex couples, and you know what I mean, and they'll make it to fit today, I guess.
I have to say I love the fact, I mean, the location work. I really appreciate it because I used to have a French girlfriend who lived in, she was from Marseille, but she lived in Paris, and I used to go and see her over there. So quite a lot of the places that they were, when they were walking along the Seine and whatever, obviously it was some decades later, but I'd been to those same places.
You're Billy Crystal.
Yeah. I kind of enjoyed that. Unfortunately, the relationship, I was more into her than she was to me. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, moving on.
I talk about the scenes. The scene that made me laugh as well was when he was in the restaurant and he had that dish, and Lord knows what it was, because it just looked like it was full of. That made me laugh. That it was just full of whatever, and he was trying to get the waiter's attention with the jacket that was 2 sizes bigger than him. Oh, that was really funny. And then when she came along, and when he's going to shake her hand, I can't remember. He said some really funny line or something like that, and he shook her hand. Remember?
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere like that.
Somewhere. There we go.
Yeah,
I can tell Finn's watched it a few times.
It's really funny. And then that bit, that reminds you of Harry Met Sally on the treadmill when he was, because like in Harry Met Sally, there's that famous scene when on the treadmill, isn't it? And he lets her go, doesn't he? But it reminds you of that bit when he's going away, saying goodbye, and he walks off, and then he kind of comes back, doesn't he? Comes back on the treadmill. So maybe that might have been a hats off to Harry Met Sally. I don't know, but that seems quite amusing as well.
Did you stay after the credits? Is the question?
No, I did not. What happened after the credits?
There is actually
a Marvel thing.
Well, there's more of him. There's a bit with him and the father-in-law. And he kept repeating that line from a song or whatever it was. And he's there trying to eat breakfast, but the actor really milks it and takes like absolutely ages to say it. So it's like a sort of outtake really at the end. But it was quite. I was surprised. I got to the end because I was listening to the. Funny enough, I do kind of remember the ballad song that they play at the end. I think was kind of, a hit single or something at the time. I seem to remember hearing, because I had never seen the film, but I seem to recognize the song. So, and again, because it was playing over the credits, I was just listening to it. And as I said, we got to the end and there was actually another scene. I was like, oh, okay.
Sorry, Finn, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, one of the things I really did love about that movie was Ellen's dad. Everything about him, like it's not a joke about that toast. I used to stay at my grandmother's house when I was a kid, and she would ask if we wanted toast, and we would never ever tell her we did, because she would cremate the toast and then stand over the sink and just scrape it off the knife. And I was like, why would you ever cook it that long? So you had to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and also the thing that he kept repeating was a slogan from Toyota car commercial.
There you go.
Yeah, it was you asked for it, you got it, Toyota.
Wow, right, okay, that was what he was saying. But I like the bit where he's talking and he gets the knife out in the back. That's typical Billy Crystal stuff, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Billy Crystal, he's such a genius when it comes to lines and situations, that stuff that he writes. And do you know what? Right, that man hasn't really been. I think now he's under the radar and he's a lot older as well. But yes, I don't. For me, anyway, maybe in Hollywood they've actually given him, I don't know, awards or whatever and stuff like that. But he's very much in England under the radar, isn't he now? Do you know what I mean? There was a point where he was big and
I guess
forgotten about him and stuff. But Yeah, he's a really funny guy.
He's done all right, I think.
Yeah.
It's fair to say he's not done bad. He's had a pretty good career. And I mean, you know, and obviously this, I mean, you know, your criticisms, Ian, are probably quite valid, because I do think that this film comes across as a passion project for him, and you know, the fact that fortunately he was at a point in his career where he had enough power to actually be able to write, produce, direct, star in this, and pretty much do the film he wanted. One could argue that it's probably a tad self-indulgent in places as a result of that, and maybe those are the things that grate with you a little bit, Ian. You know, in terms of some of the forced, almost like some of the forced humor that seems to be there, but you know, I think it still had plenty of charm. And as far as romantic comedies go, you know, I think if I'd seen this at the time, I would have actually quite enjoyed it. It's just
the only bit that didn't make me, sorry, Keith, the only bit that didn't make me laugh was the bit with the pigeon. I didn't find that funny at all, where it was stuck to her head. I just thought that thing felt false.
Yeah, I must admit, I didn't find the situation funny. But the one thing I did find funny was his birds reference, because he says, you were there doing Tippy Hedrum or whatever, and I thought that was brilliant. But that was almost, again, like almost a Billy Crystal ad lib. It felt like, you know, and that was quite funny. But yeah, the actual scenario itself was a bit cringe. It felt a bit cheesy.
Yeah.
I
mean, I don't know what you thought, right? But what is it? She was scared of the mouse first, and then they put down that stuff on the thing, and then the bird got caught. Do you know what I mean? It just felt, I don't know. It just
with Clint Howard, cameo by Clint Howard as the
they always get him to play those roles, don't they?
Yeah.
Always the weirdo roles and stuff like that. But I mean, as I said, I didn't find that the actual situation funny, but you can see why someone would fall in love with Billy Crystal if he's that funny in real life. You're either going to be his best pal or you're going to marry him. Do you know what I mean? Because the man is really funny, like all those lines that he said to her when he was trying to cheer her up. That's hilarious.
But also, likewise, Deborah Winger in this is very charismatic as well, because what I thought worked well with them was she was also funny.
You reckon?
You know, yeah, I thought her she was very relaxed and she was able to sort of hold her own with him in terms of the witty retorts. At least I felt like that. I sort of thought, and also the other thing I really liked about this film was I actually think that the situation in which they met was really nicely done. I did like that idea, you know, with the you know, the coffin getting lost and stuff. You know,
I don't know about you, Finn, but there was loads of jokes that was basically. You can tell it was just pasted in there for that scene. So when he was talking to the woman at the counter about his dad missing, and then when he was talking to somebody else about his dad missing, and you know, you could tell that he thought of like, where can I stick this joke in?
Oh yeah, that's the one thing with this, the writing in that, and like I didn't realize he wrote. Did he write that? You were saying?
Yeah, he wrote it. Yeah.
Okay, because like the jokes themselves sound like they could be improv, except they're delivered like they were memorized.
Yeah.
So it's like they're probably jokes, you know, like he came up with and like, you know, it felt like they did the takes for each one, but it wasn't just like they were thinking of them off the cuff. I guess like to me, I feel like I guess that's it. Close to like, I guess maybe what you were saying about like the jokes just kind of felt a little off, maybe just like the pacing of the tempo of the like what they were talking about. Sometimes it's just like
it's a different type of humor because Billy Crystal's a stand-up comic, so you can see him working his stand-up routine into that film. Unlike if you watch Train, Planes and Automobiles, you know, when Steve Martin had to confront the lady at the desk. It's a different kind of humor. It wasn't based on dialogue. It was based on the situation and what happened to him in that situation. That's what makes it funny. But with Billy Crystal in this film, it felt like the situation served what he said. So that's why it didn't feel natural to me.
Yeah.
But that's in hindsight, isn't it? After so many years.
Of course. It's almost like he was a little too close to it. You know, because he was directing it and he was doing all of this stuff, and I know exactly what you mean. It had an air of, yes, there were, because I think when I was saying the ad lib bits, I felt that more in the basketball scenes than in the actual love story stuff. That felt very scripted and as you said, almost like he was almost there were points where he almost breaks the fourth wall with some of it, because he's very aware of the humorous delivery and stuff. But when I say these things, I mean I realize I'm being massively nitpicky here, that there's nothing wrong with this film, you know.
It's just AFK Bard's channel and she expects us to be nitpicky. Do you know
exactly
what I mean? What she expects us to do. What's that?
You're allowed to be. Yeah.
There you go. See, we've got permission now.
It like just kind of gives, at least for me, a different perspective of it, because I would never really look too much into this, like the comedy itself or how it's like delivered or how it might be written, but like it kind of changes. Like for me, like it once, I don't know, I've always kind of like there is a tempo thing, like for that, like I like the movie, it's a great movie, but like I always put the tempo as like placed it with like the time it was made, like maybe that was just the style of humor or something. But at the same time, besides just the tempo, and by tempo I mean, I guess, like, I don't believe people can realistically quip that quickly with each other. And like the most guilty, I think, project ever would be the Gilmore Girls. If you've ever watched an episode of that show, in fact, just like look a clip of like Gilmore Girl quips. They speak a mile a minute and about like random pop culture references, random like this reference, this is blah blah blah, and they're like constantly like bickering with each other, and it just, nothing about it feels natural at all. And people explain it away like, oh well, it's just their character quirks, and it's like, well, no, that's not really a quirk. That's just like a human ability to have like some sort of discourse with one another. So, I mean, for me, it's a pace that works in this movie, but at the same time, it's at that point where I'm like, there's no way they could be ready to spit back as often as they.
And I know exactly what you mean, but nevertheless, this movie was very entertaining. You know, Billy Crystal and Deborah Winger were absolutely fabulous in this film. And did you know that Billy Crystal went to school with Kareem? I can't pronounce his surname. The basketball player. Yeah, he went to school with him, and they were friends before they even became who they became. That was very interesting, don't you think?
Yeah,
and also, Billy Crystal loves basketball, and it's obvious that he wrote that in there for himself to meet some of the players and stuff. So that's interesting as well, don't you think?
And you know what he did as well, which was really smart here, because I mean, I do think he and Deborah Winger definitely had chemistry, which worked. But he also surrounded himself with some great character actors, including, I love the waiter, because he's the guy. I always think of him as the guy from Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2, yeah. Die Hard 2, yeah.
The traffic warden at the airport, you know.
But he's. I remember they had a little news bulletin when I was in New York. I think it was New York or LA. There was something on the news, and they were talking about, and they were saying, you may have seen this guy in so many movies, but you don't know his name. And they did a little article on him. The amount of films that guy's been in, you know what I mean? He's been in a lot of movies, but he's just that face that you can't put a name to, and that's what the news bulletin was about. So he is kind of famous, if you know what I mean. And but he was very amusing in the film as well. You know, was it dark but lovely? Or remember when it did?
Yeah.
We have a champagne. You mean a champagne?
Everything was a reference to his personality in some way, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah.
I like that. I thought the ensemble, and I liked, actually, in terms of storytelling, I did like the way that they framed it with the couple that were going to get, announce their marriage or whatever, and they were she was the cipher for the audience. Like, she wanted to know more, and I agree, because they'd leave us hanging, and you'd think, oh yeah, I want to know what happened. So that, the narrative worked quite well on this, I thought. Yeah,
it did. As I said, it's a really entertaining movie, and it's romantic in parts. As I said, I can only look at it now from 2021. So when I look at the bits where they're in Paris and you have all the music and stuff, I was thinking, okay, do you know what I mean? Because I've seen that in so many movies. But again, the first time I saw it, none of what I'm telling you ever occurred to me. Because I think I saw this film in the cinema. I'm not sure, but I couldn't remember it. That's why I watched it again and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm sure my review after seeing it wouldn't have been how I think of it now, if you know what I mean. So,
well, you'd have to be honest, it's one of those films that you probably would have said, "Oh yeah, that's all right," and that's it, And I don't mean that in any way to sort of belittle it, Finn, at all. As I said, I'm glad I saw it, but it obviously, at the time you watched it, it was obviously at a time where something about that experience of watching it, really resonated with you, and you say it's a guilty pleasure, but I mean, I think, well, yeah, or not so guilty, it's fine.
As I said, I can tell you reason why I chose, Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Heaven Can Wait. Or I told you last time what reason why I think Heaven Can Wait plays a nice part in my heart, because of, as I explained to you, about Lent and stuff like that. But is there a story like that behind this for you, Finn? Or was it just random that you saw it on TV and it never left your mind?
Yeah, no, mine was just like the random on TV, and just like having that like reaction. Like, there's just like certain things that do that to me. Like, immediately it just sticks. Another movie that I think a lot of people don't like that I love is Cutthroat Island, and I had a similar response to that.
The film that killed MGM, yeah.
Well, I liked it.
Out of context, as a kid, I saw that movie, and as a kid, I was just like, wow, I really do think that, well, they filmed on location, they had real ship that they were working with. The costumes were amazing. Like, every set and prop was like on par. So like, for me, I was like breathtaking by that movie, and like, I loved the main character. She was so cool, and she was kick butt, and she has like the most cheesy line at the end of that movie, like, I always wanted to watch it again, because I was like, this is really fun.
There's actually there's a really interesting documentary on I did a review recently of Total Recall, the 4K release, but there's a really interesting documentary on that about Carol Co., which was the production company that was behind it, and it kind of says how that film was sort of responsible for the collapse of that company, because basically, and there's nothing wrong with liking it, but it was basically, as you well said, they did a lot of things practically. They spent a lot of money on it, and they never got the return on the investment of what they put into it. But it's interesting.
I think it was similar to a Water World when they made that movie too. They put so much effort into making it look amazing, and then it was like in the theater.
Which is one of my guilty pleasures, I have to say.
You like Waterworld? You like Waterworld?
I do. I'm
a
big Costner fan, as you know, but yeah.
They had an argument that the two Kevins fell out on that film, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did like it, but you know, it was okay. It was kind of like Mad Max on water, wasn't it? Let's face it. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But let's get back to let's get back to Paris, shall we?
Forget Paris.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. No, as I said, I really liked it. I said, but there are a few things in there that kind of grated with me. I thought the ending wasn't very satisfying, in my opinion. But I must point out, there were certain scenes that was directed really well. And Keith probably would have noticed it. The bit where they're playing pool. You know that scene? That was all done as a one-er. So you have that shot where... Sorry, do you remember that scene? So you have the shot where they're talking. And then as they're talking, it's like they're at the side and the guy comes in. He's in the middle and he bangs and he comes away. And then you focus back on the other two. And he goes round the table and he comes back, doesn't he? And he does the same thing. And then after he's gone, the camera pushes into Billy Crystal. And I thought, that's quite nice.
Yeah, there's some nice flourishes in there. Yeah.
And the last shot at the ending, when you're looking through the window of the door of the restaurant from the kitchen, when they start telling the story again. And that's how it ends, doesn't it? When they come to the table and stuff like that. And I thought that was quite a nice shot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's competently made for sure. And yeah, it's a nice love story. Yeah, I had a good time for 90. How long was it? 2 hours or whatever it was, however long it was, but it was fine.
I said
100 minutes. 100 minutes. So, yeah.
Deborah Winger was on. I think she was on her way out at that time, wasn't she? I don't think she ever recovered.
I think what it was, my understanding is she took a gap after this film because her mother was sick.
Oh, right.
So she took several years out of the industry to look after her ailing mother. I believe. I don't know. I might have got that slightly wrong, but I think that's the case.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
because I remember shouldn't she make it? It was Officer and a Gentleman, wasn't it? Officer and
That's
Gentleman?
right. Yeah.
Made her a big star, and then I actually can't remember what film she did after that, though. It's really puzzling how people can be forgotten just like that. Big stars just forgotten. It's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? Although Billy Crystal's never been forgotten. Well, I have not forgotten him.
I feel like there's probably a generation of kids who've never seen him in anything,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they might have heard his voice and stuff because he's done voices, but I don't know. I mean, the last thing I remember seeing him in was the Oscars? No, the Grammys.
That was the Oscars.
Where he was singing.
He was singing?
Yeah, there was like
he used to do that at the beginning of the Oscar ceremonies.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's the last time I remember seeing him in anything, and then he's just kind of poof.
Yeah, he's kind of. I remember those. In fact, he had a really good career if you think about it. I mean, he did those Analyze This, didn't he? Films. He did 2 with because the first one was such a huge success. They did a sequel, didn't they?
With De Niro.
De Niro. Analyze This. You've heard of it? Analyze This.
I forgot he did those movies. It's been a while. Oh my gosh.
And I know now he's working with Disney Plus because they're. He did the voice in Monsters Inc.
Oh yeah,
one of the characters, and I think they're developing I don't know whether it's a sequel or another film or what, but I believe that's on the Pixar Disney Plus slate for up and coming. So,
do you know when I was watching Monsters Inc. Right? I don't know about you guys. You guys seen Monsters Inc. Right?
Great film.
Right? Did you ever get the feeling that Billy Crystal had a huge hand in that character? Because that bit remember he was, I can't remember the situation, but he was caught and he was saying, "Oh, we're doing a play," you know, remember that? And he named some horrible, what is it? Take your hands off. I can't remember what he called it. And at the end, in the credits, they literally did the play, didn't they? Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
That was very Billy Crystal. That was very Billy Crystal, you know. And I got the feeling that he had a hand in some of the story plots, if you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
I mean, he is a very clever and very funny guy, you know, and very talented as well. If you could write something like Forget Paris, and it was very amusing, it was very entertaining, that's amazing, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, very. And Deborah Winger, it's a shame it went that way for her, but I'm pretty sure she's happy. Pretty sure she's happy. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, really happy I've now seen it. Because as I said, in fact, this is 2 times in a row, because I hadn't seen Heaven Can Wait either until we did this. So I had seen Pelham, but I hadn't seen the TV version of Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. So there you go.
The thing with me and Finn is that I like to think that I make Finn see something in completely different light. Because when we were doing Stranger Things, I would say things like, you know, that doesn't make sense and blah, blah, blah. And then Finn would be sitting there wide-eyed going, wait a moment, I didn't see that. I didn't see that bit. Wait. So kind of thing. So, you know, maybe it's a good thing that we review these films and stuff like that.
I think it's really good. I never think it's a bad thing. I think it's really good to discover new stuff and to revisit stuff that you might not have seen for a while. And if you are, for whatever reason, passionate about a certain film, I think there's nothing better than discussing that with people who, who maybe haven't seen it until you recommend it. So, I think this is a really good little concept and a good series that you've got here, Finn, with this sort of thing. I think it's, hopefully your viewers are finding it entertaining as well, but I'm certainly enjoying being part of it. So why not?
It's a laugh.
Exactly.
Thanks. No, and now you'll have to maybe try to think of something that you might want to watch or something.
God, there's so many.
Yeah.
Well, do something like as I said. I think the whole idea of this is to pick a film that's under the radar, that was known but everybody's forgotten about. You know what I mean? Like two examples. I mean, I've only seen Forget Paris once, and I think it was in the cinema. I can't really remember, but I know when I was watching it, I said to myself, I've seen this film. So I don't know when I saw it, but I guess it was in the cinema. Because I was a huge Billy Crystal fan, especially when he made Running Scared and the other films that I mentioned. And every time he had a film out, I would go and see it because I used to think he was very, very funny. You know, so I must have seen that in the cinema. But the whole point is to pick a film that. Now, if you pick a film like Star Wars, that's been done to death. You've got to pick a film that's under the radar that you've kind of heard of but never seen. That's the thing. So,
there's plenty of those. So yeah,
you reckon it's hard?
Yeah.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Well, are you going to pick one, Keith, for next week?
Yep.
Maybe.
No pressure or anything.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to pick It's hard to pick. As I said, it's hard to pick something that's under the radar. But be interesting to pick a film and you guys don't like it. That would be an interesting talk. Very interesting. What's that?
I'm always looking to try anything. There are certain genres that I rarely touch, if ever, but it's not for the sake of not trying. It's like lack of interest and no one pushing me to do it.
Yeah. I remember we did. I was on the Rabbi's stream and we did Blazing Saddles, and I think Blazing Saddles is hilarious. And Dan hated it. He didn't think it was funny at all. He thought it was just, it was just a terrible movie. What was the point of it? Blah blah blah. But that was an interesting conversation. Why he thought it didn't work, and why I thought it worked, and why people thought it worked, whatever. So, maybe I'll try and find a film that you guys hate. Maybe I don't know. It'll be an interesting conversation. What's that?
Accepted.
Well, I don't know. I'll try. But anyway. But yeah, Forget Paris. I recommend it if people are looking for a romantic comedy. Yeah, romantic comedy. I recommend it definitely. It's not in the same vein as Harry Met Sally, but it's still entertaining as far as I'm concerned. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. It doesn't quite have the gestalt of something like When Harry Met Sally, but at the same time, it's a perfectly decent romantic comedy. Yes,
but it's really funny because at that moment in time, there were actors that were doing that. Billy Crystal's one of them, and Tom Hanks was another, wasn't he? He made a string of. In fact, he made, I think, 3 movies, romantic movies, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
With Meg Ryan.
Him and Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan, with Meg Ryan.
Which again is it's all connected. Everything's connected.
Yeah. The one I didn't like, what was the one where they had to meet in the Empire State Building with Tom Hanks?
Seattle.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought that one was very good, but You've Got Mail I didn't think was so good.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either. That was similar, wasn't it? Similar to because they never.
These were directed by Nora Ephron, I think, who also did When Harry Met Sally. Yeah. So it's
But as I said, I didn't really that one. I didn't really like because they didn't meet, did they, until the end, up in the Empire State Building.
It was in Seattle.
Yeah,
That was the Space Needle.
What's that?
Wasn't it the Space? Oh no, I guess they ended up in New York, didn't they?
Yes.
I get that movie confused with all the other romantic comedies back.
Well, because most of them end up, in New York, don't they?
Yeah.
Another one I like is Serendipity.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen the trailers and stuff. That's Cusack, isn't it? John Cusack. And that really gorgeous girl, I can't remember her name. The one that's in that vampire movie.
Oh, Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, who is lovely. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Serendipity. Yeah.
I've never seen it.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try it out.
Yeah.
Mr. Bean makes a random cameo.
What's that?
Rowan Atkinson makes a random cameo.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we did.
He always pops up in those movies for whatever reason. So
we did Gross Point Blank, didn't we, Finn? Gross Point Blank. Yeah, that's one of my favorite films. Gross Point Blank. We did that, and that was quite a good stream actually. But yeah, I'll try and. Well, if Keith can't find one, let me know if you can't find one, Keith, and then. Surely there's got to be a film that's close to your heart, or you just saw and you thought that was.
There is, but I don't know whether to. Thing is, I don't want to. I don't know what your plan is with this, so I don't want to tie you into something.
There is no plan.
There is no plan.
Okay, well, one of my favorite films that people haven't heard of, but I really like, is a film called The Man Who Haunted Himself.
I do like that film. That's Roger Moore, right?
Roger Moore. Moore. I love that movie. You
don't know what it is, Finn?
I've never seen it, so I would be excited to see that.
It's a British movie. And it was made in the 70s.
Yeah, I think it was made. I think it's like 71, or it was a few years before he played James Bond. But it's just one of those films. I saw it as a kid when it was rerun on television at some point, and it was just one of those films that always kind of pulled me in. And we did I used to have a podcast called Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, and we did a Roger Moore tribute when he passed away, sadly. And we each had to pick a Roger Moore film. And of course, everybody was picking Bond films and assumed I would because everybody knew I'm a massive James Bond fan. But I picked The Man Who Haunted Themselves. And they were like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, no, trust me, this film is great.
It's a good film. His name was Pelham, wasn't it, in the film?
Yeah, Pemberton.
That's it. But another film that Roger Moore was great in was The Wild Geese. I never ever. Every time I think about The Wild Geese, I think about Roger Moore. I think about Richard Burton and Richard Harris. Because you know what? When I saw The Wild Geese, right, the first time I saw it wasn't in the cinema. It was at school, in the third form. Someone had brought it in on film, on 16mm film, with 5 reels or 6 reels, whatever, and they showed it in the activities hall. They put the whole school in there, and it was the last day of term, and they showed us this film, this violent film. And that was the first time I saw it, and I thought it was crazy that they showed it to us because we were all third years, we were really young, and they played it to us. You know, the bit where the guy gets stabbed up by all the, remember that scene and stuff. I was thinking to myself, oh my God, this is really violent. But in those days, the schools didn't care. They just showed you anything. It was before VHS.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're dating yourself now, Ian. Bloody hell. I mean, even me, they used to put VHS on at school. But, that's cool.
What are you going to say?
Cool.
I was going to say that was back when like PG movies had like violence and swearing in them. And I distinctly remember seeing a movie that was under the Disney umbrella. Like they did a lot of random obscure movies, and it had children smoking in a bathroom. So, and it was a PG family movie.
There you go. There you go.
There you go.
But honestly, I could talk forever with you guys. But so we're going to watch The Man Who Haunted Himself. Is that what it's called?
Where do you get that?
Huh?
Where do I get that though?
Good question, because I've got it on. I actually have it on DVD, but let me just look it up and see if it's available on Amazon or something.
Yeah, well, if it's available, but if not, we will figure something out.
Yeah, I'd love to see Man again because I only saw it once. I saw it on the BBC. I think it was late night they showed it, and I remember thinking that's no. Because at the time it was when I saw it, he was in the Persuaders, maybe. No, he was James Bond. It was James Bond. So yeah.
Yeah, no, he was. It doesn't say that it's on Prime or anything, so I don't know. It might be difficult to find.
Yeah.
You see, it's actually based on an Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode as well. So it's got connections to that as well, which is what I love. But yeah.
Well, if I can't find it, and Finn, if I find it, obviously I'll send it to Finn. But if I can't find it, then like for instance, I saw Forget Paris on Amazon.
So did I.
And I rented it, right?
So did I.
And do you think I can go back and see it again? I don't even know how to do it.
You have to buy it, yeah.
Again.
Yeah, you get the option in Amazon Prime. You get the option to rent or buy. Basically on the streaming, and if you I rented it, but I thought it was money well spent because, as I said, I had a great time with it. But yes, if you rent it, you've got like I think so many days to watch it,
30.
and then that's it. You can't.
But when I brought the Dresden Files because AFK Barden and me we're huge fans of the Dresden Files, and I don't even know where it is now. I can't find it.
Did you rent it or buy it though?
I brought it.
Oh, okay.
And I don't even know where it is on Amazon. Apparently, if you buy something on Amazon, you don't really own it. You can't download it. It's just on Amazon. So if Amazon goes down,
this is what home media Minefield is all about, mate. So yeah, I hear you.
It's terrible, isn't it? It's like I can't find it anymore. I own it, but I can't find it. So it's annoying. But anyway,
that's a series I haven't seen, by the way. I'm aware of, but I've not seen it. The Dresden
first Harry Wizard. He was the first Harry Wizard before Harry Potter. So there you go.
Yeah,
maybe that's why I haven't seen it.
So, before we go, I just want to thank you guys again for coming and wanting to chat movies with me, and for putting yourself through Forget Paris. Before we end this, Ian and Keith, I'll let you both talk a little bit about yourselves and where to find you and what you're all about. So, Ian, you go first.
Me? Yeah. I keep saying this. I really hate saying this. Right? I've got a web series called Rebecca Gold, and it's on the Rebecca Gold channel on YouTube. I am a filmmaker, I am a producer, a director, a writer, and an editor. And I have films on my YouTube channel, 3 feature films, in fact. So if you ever want to watch something entertaining that stars this man down here in a few, come to my channel and watch some feature films and watch my award-winning web series. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Keith.
Yeah, I've got a channel called Home Media Minefield as my name tag there. That's where I review physical media. It's all about physical media, so Blu-ray, 4K, DVD, that sort of thing. I do unboxings and reviews weekly on that. I'm also, I need to plug this as well, especially as it's near Valentine's Day and we're talking about romantic films. I'm actually in a film that's on YouTube. I'm on Amazon Prime at the moment called Modern Love, directed by Simon Aitken. As I said, it's available on Amazon Prime. You guys mentioned earlier, you were talking about Doctor Who. One of the actresses in this film is Louise Jameson, who played Leela in Doctor Who. So there is a Doctor Who connection there. But yes, I'm in that, so that's available to watch. And if you want to see films that I've made, if you go to British Isles, which is EYLES, as in my last name, on YouTube, there's some films that I've made there. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll have information down in the comment down below in the description so that people will be able to find you guys. So we'll figure out what movie we're gonna do next time. And until then, adios to everybody, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.